to demand an apology from the Prime Minister, frankly. This is a time when Canada needs leadership that brings people together instead of dividing them. And what's interesting is the strongest support against radicalization, especially of youth, comes from the senior Muslim leadership. They're careful to make sure that people understand that they want to be partners. They have no interest whatsoever in seeing the types of problems that are described here. And it was irresponsible of the Prime Minister to throw the mosques into his comments. It was a form of Islamophobia, and it was wrong.
That is the NDP leader, Tom Mulcair. He's angry. He's not the only one at the Prime Minister's comments made on Friday, which I'll show you in a minute, about the defense for the need for this controversial new anti-terror legislation. He was asked about radicalization, and here's what the Prime Minister said.
It doesn't matter what the age of a person is, or whether they're in their basement, or whether they're in a mosque or somewhere else. When you are engaged in activities that explicitly promote or advocate terrorism, that is a serious criminal offense, no matter who you are.
So Tom Mulcair said that was Islamophobic. The National Council of Canadian Muslims spoke out today. They say the Prime Minister is targeting Muslim Canadians in the new anti-terror legislation with that comment when he drew that connection between the anti-terror legislation and radicalization and mosques. Just what did the Prime Minister say? And why is it angering so many? Let's find out right now. Joining me now is Amira Elghawaby, a human rights coordinator for the National Council of Muslim Canadians, and Sikander Hashmi is an imam for the Kannada Muslim Association, who's been on the show many times. Good to see both of you.
Thanks, Evan.
Okay. Amira Elghawaby, let me start with you. I just spoke to Roxanne James, Conservative MP, who said the Prime Minister said not just mosques, but it doesn't matter whether they're in basements, mosques, or anywhere. If you're promoting this, it's a crime. Why do you believe that was wrong?
So I think it must be said that when the Prime Minister of Canada comes out and sort of makes a sweeping generalization about the country's mosques, that people are going to pay attention. And he did not, sort of clarify his comments as he did later today. He was very clear in saying, oh, we are, whether it's happening in mosques or not. So we're very concerned, very troubled by that, because it sort of casts a very wide net of suspicion in these very tense times that we're living in. And Canadian Muslims have actually been at the forefront. Their leaders have been at the forefront trying to be part of the solution, trying to find ways to combat violent extremism. And certainly the Prime Minister's comment sort of creates this divisiveness that we find completely unnecessary and damaging.
Sikander Hashmi, your reaction to the comments. He has said very clearly that he's concerned about radicalization, jihadist fanaticism. Those are his words. He would assume that if there's jihadist fanaticism, it's happening in some places, basements, and he said mosques. Is that targeting Muslims, or is that just being clear about what the issue that he believes is threatening right now is?
Yeah, Evan, I think, we live in very sad and difficult times, and there clearly there's a lot of fear. Amongst many Canadians, many Canadian Muslims as well. And I think the Prime Minister is probably trying to deal with the situation in the way that he thinks is best. But at the same time, the messaging is very important. And the fact that, we have the Prime Minister suggesting, and perhaps it wasn't intentional, right? Maybe he just threw the word in there. We're all human beings. We have slips of the tongue. Perhaps that's not what he tried to, maybe he wasn't trying to target Muslims or pick on mosques, but that's clearly how it comes across. And I think it's very important for us to make it clear that mosques are not the source of radicalization. That's not where it is happening. Well, it could be. As
Imam Sawardi, who you and I have spoken to, he has said that there are mosques where this has been encouraged. That has been a place where even he has said that has, not the only source or anything, certainly, but he said that has been a place that we have to talk about.
Okay, well, two things. First of all, it could be happening in a coffee shop. It could be happening anywhere, okay, right. Number one. Number two, if it's actually happening in a mosque, I believe that the authorities already know about it, and they probably have already dealt with it. And if anyone comes across any mosque or any imam in Canada who's preaching hate and violent radicalization, I would expect them to report them to the authorities.
Right. Okay? So you think they're monitoring, you think authorities are monitoring mosques anyway, right?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And we have a very open, transparent policy, mosques are not places which are closed down to anyone. They are open. We have an open door policy. I even record, my sermons and put them online. Okay, so we're very, very transparent. We have people coming into mosques all the time, visitors who are not Muslims. So mosques are clearly not the issue. And I think the Prime Minister, I just encourage him to really try to bring people together. As leaders, we know that during difficult times, good leaders will solve the problem. Great leaders will actually bring people together and solve the problem.
Amira Elghawaby, the Prime Minister's office responded, and you've asked for an apology. They've made a clarification. I want to know your reaction to it, if this is enough. Here's what they said to us, quote, "The Prime Minister did not say all radicalization occurs in mosques. In fact, he said the exact opposite. Radicalization towards jihadi terrorism can happen anywhere. Following the attacks last fall, the Prime Minister specifically thanked the members of the Muslim community and categorically and unequivocally condemned categorically and unequivocally condemning the attacks and recognized the Muslim community for their efforts in fighting radicalization." Does that do it for you?
I'm afraid not, Evan. I think it has to be clear. He made those statements in a public forum. They were carried all over the country. This email clarification later on today, whoops, sorry, needed to clarify a little bit more. It's just not going to cut it, especially when we put this into context. We have to understand that mosques and various Islamic institutions across Canada have been vandalized, have had anti-Muslim incidents happening there. They have had their windows broken. They've had people are being sometimes verbally assaulted, physically assaulted. So there is a context to this, and we actually haven't heard the Prime Minister at any point make any kind of statement to say, you know what, Canadians are standing united against hatred in any form from wherever it is emerging, and we need to stand united together. So I think we need to hear from this Prime Minister that he represents all Canadians and not speak to the fear-mongering that will just empower the kind of extremist discourse that we're all trying to address.
So you still want an apology?
Absolutely.
All right, let me go to Sikander Hashmi. Here in Ottawa, and you and I have spoken about this, a number of local men have turned toward radical Islam. They've gone overseas. There's this domestic issue that you and the foreign fighter issue that we've spoken about. Where does the responsibility for this lie? Does it lie with mosques? Again, do mosques have a role to play here in this radicalization that's going on and now this foreign fighter role?
There's absolutely a role to play in fighting radicalization, and I think it's a shared responsibility. Government agencies, the Prime Minister, other social service agencies, local police forces have a role to play. So do Muslim leaders, so do Muslim community members, so do all Canadians. So I think we really have to understand that this is a shared struggle. This is really a struggle between people who want to coexist peacefully regardless of their faith, Muslim, Jews, Christians, people of no faith, all other faiths, versus people who want to promote hate, who want to promote violence, and who want to create mistrust between people. And
so did you both feel, when the Prime Minister said that, how did you feel? Did you feel, what was the reaction?
Well, it's very disappointing and it's very concerning, right? Because all of a sudden now, people listening who may not know very much about the issue, who may not have heard our constant condemnations, that comes up, where are the Muslim voices? Yeah. We've been speaking out about this collectively for over a decade now, and individually before that as well. We just had peace gatherings. We had peace gatherings, in 4 cities across Ontario this weekend. Canadian Muslims for Peace. So the message has been there. People may not have heard about it, but when they hear the Prime Minister's comments, or it could be any other politician now, it could be, leader of the opposition or anyone else who makes comments like that, it gives the wrong impression to people. It fuels hatred. It can fuel the fear that we do not need.
Did you feel the same thing?
Well, I think Canadian Muslims every single day are carrying this huge weight on their shoulders. I mean, they're going into their workplaces, their schools, and they're trying to explain what they believe in, right? What is Islam? What is Islam that people keep seeing on their television screens associated with awful, awful acts, criminal acts? And so they're already carrying a very heavy weight that they have to clarify the religion. So when the leader of our country makes a statement that, again, sort of puts everyone back underneath this microscope of suspicion without any kind of real acknowledgement as to the work that is being done on a day-to-day basis to address these very concerning issues. The safety of Canada is not only a civic duty, but a religious duty for us.
So very quickly, your reaction to the anti-terror legislation, because the Prime Minister has explicitly, and by the way, he's not the only one, all leaders have said, ISIS, radical Islam, very different strain, jihadist, there's lots of words for it, Islamist. The Prime Minister said they have declared war on Canada. So they think, we can't be too politically correct. We have to point out the issue. Do you believe that this anti-terror legislation is balanced?
Well, I think we've already been hearing from experts, from academics, from people working in the areas of law today at the Senate. Actually, the Senate hearings, we had academics speaking about how they have concerns about this legislation. And from our perspective, it looks like an election bill. Basically, you're feeding upon fear that is out there, trying to show that this government is tough on crime, when many experts and people who are working in these areas are saying, look, we already have legislation on the books to address these issues. We already have hate laws in place that can put anyone who is inciting violence, inciting hatred away. So, you know, what is this really about? Is this truly about addressing the causes and the issues that we need to be addressing as a country, or is this about pandering to a political base?
And by the way, just so people know, the NCCM had run-ins with the Prime Minister's office before.
Yes.
They'd accused your group of aligning with Hamas, a terrorist organization,
right.
On Canada's list. I understand your group has launched a libel lawsuit against the Prime Minister's office.
Right, absolutely, and it's
Where
still
does that
ongoing.
stand? It's still ongoing. Okay, so this is long-standing now. Yeah. Finally, your view on the anti-terror legislation?
Look, I think we have, you know, there's only so much that can be done, that can be resolved through laws. Okay, what we're facing here really is an ideology, and laws can't control the way people think. Laws can only control so much of what people read and what they see. So we really need to work on battling what actually is causing this to happen. This is not happening in a vacuum. Okay, we did not have this problem 20, 25 years ago. So we need to go at the root of what is actually causing this. And Muslim leaders, Muslim institutions are at the forefront of that struggle, and we need to work together. So the law may put a Band-Aid on the problem, but we really need to get to what's actually causing it. And there needs to be enough proper safeguards as well, because you know what? These laws will stay on the books, and they can actually then target other groups. So it's not just because, I'm not concerned just because I'm a Muslim, I'm concerned because I'm a Canadian. And other groups could also be targeted when you know, the type of target changes.
All right, I gotta leave it there. So